Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're absolutely delighted to be here. My name is Georgina Murphy-Jones, consultant paramedic, and I'm here with Di, who you'll hear from soon. She's a nurse consultant in palliative and end-of-life care. We both work for the London Ambulance Service, but we're here to present our own views on palliative and end-of-life care in emergency medical services. Over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to consider some of the challenges and the opportunities that we've identified over the last few years of working together. The session aims to capture our joint learning taken from each professional background, and we're initially going to lead a slide each, but we're going to discuss a few key elements from each slide between us. So next slide, please, Di, and we'll make a start. Thank you. So Di and I were brought together by a Macmillan funded improvement programme in the London Ambulance Service. It started in 2018 and aimed to improve the quality of our end-of-life care service provision. At the end of the 2.5-year programme, our evaluation demonstrated impact in several areas of service provision, and it resulted in a substantive team being formed. This is a really unique position for a UK ambulance service to have a substantive end-of-life care team, so we're very pleased. The focus of our work is on education for clinicians, but actually the success of our partnership comes from the learning from each other and about the interplay between both of our professions.
And I think that's really important as well, because the contrast of the two professions has led to quite a lot of lively debate, I have to say. So what about mutual appreciation of each other's roles? Well, I learned, and I'm still learning after 4.5 years, about the differences and appreciating them. And I've spent a lot of time helping my colleagues in palliative care understand what ambulance clinicians can and can't do, as well as the other way around. And this is really important, especially in relation to expectations from each other, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But our connection with our stakeholders has also been so important and cannot be underestimated. We continue to find opportunities for collaborative working and recognise how powerful that can be. We too often see siloed working, don't we, with no benefit for the patient, carer or the healthcare professionals. Having a nurse working inside an emergency service has been fortuitous, I believe, and provided valuable links between the different professionals. So this has been particularly beneficial when there have been things like incidents or quality alerts that have been raised. We can quickly reach out as a team to the stakeholder to learn from each other. And area of anxiety for ambulance clinicians in terms of resus decision making. And I think there's something about this, the rapidity, that's not a word, the speed at which we have to make these decisions, as in, is it sepsis, is it dying, and are we going to resuscitate? There's something about our position of having to make such rapid decisions that makes it so difficult. And there are many myths that we're continuing to bust about DNA CPR. Do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation when we're educating colleagues. We strongly advocate that hospital decisions are valid in the community. We know that can differ in other parts of the country, but in London, the decision travels with the patient, but sometimes that is of a concern to clinicians should they follow a hospital decision. An expiry date is absolutely not required. A review date is not required for the patient group that we're talking about in terms of DNA CPR decision. That a physical copy doesn't have to be seen. We absolutely support and promote electronic palliative care coordination systems like Di mentioned, to really hold and, crucially for us, share these decisions with EMS systems. And that's probably the most important part, that sharing of information. And looking at the left-hand side of the screen, you'll recognise the RC UK DNA CPR form, and a lot of staff, because that was so well publicised, hold on to the idea that it must have a red border, but it's absolutely not the case. Now DNA CPR decisions are most commonly encountered within respect documents, the purple one in the middle. But of course, there's also variation of different kinds of documents and styles, and so recognition is really important in what's used in your local area. But
Even without a DNA CPR decision being made in advance, ambulance clinicians are empowered by our Joint Royal College's Ambulance Liaison Committee, bit of a mouthful, but JLCALC as we call it, national guidance, to recognise the end of life. When there's evidence to support that resuscitation should not be started or should cease once information is obtained. But I think the difficulty is that these decisions depend on exposure, experience, and having rapid and robust clinical advice that's available to support the most complex.
To share that decision making and the crisis management, so there's support available for emergency services.
We know that these life to death decisions are very grey. They're not algorithmic. They may not sit comfortably with us. They are often very, very complex. And we recognise that we are not experts in end of life care. And so we really do need to reach out and undertake shared decision making in this particular clinical area, especially. And it's not just reaching out to healthcare professionals, but to family members and people who know the patient or their carers, because this is what's so important when we're trying to make a best interest decision.
And all of these take-home messages point to getting to know your local services and reaching out to them to discuss the possibility of collaborative working. Be brave, go for it. We did, and it's been so beneficial. In this way, we can all ensure that expectations and limitations of services can be clarified and avoid any ambiguity, thus moving towards seamless and coordinated services for our patients and their families at a really challenging point in their lives.
And I can't really better that wonderful message, but I would say that we know that even if you don't have a large end-of-life care team, well, there's 3 of us part-time, so we're not a large team, but if you don't have an end-of-life care team in your service, then we know that there's amazing pockets of great work going on. You can make local connections at a station to hospice, local palliative care team, even a GP interested in end-of-life care. You can make small local connections, and these can make a huge difference in terms of shared learning. We know I've learned the palliative care world is so keen to engage with us and to educate us. And it's really important that we do have this shared understanding about each other's roles, because it really does help develop our own personal practice. So I would say go out there and make the connections, because you can see you have a wonderful partnership like ours.